Welcome back to Politics Tonight, everyone. Thank you very much for staying with us. Tonight, we're focused on Benue Plateau killings as T.Y. Danjuma tells Nigerians, defend yourselves against bandits. My guest tonight is Kabir Adamu, Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. Dr. Kabir, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. I'm sure you know or you're aware that the president recently says is committed to keeping the country safe. He says he's committed to restoring peace and security. Do you advise that we expedite action on state police?
Yes, I advocate for the decentralization of policing. But whether that is state policing or some other, decoupling of the Nigerian police force at the moment is something that we should tread carefully. The democratic culture at the state level, at the subnational level, is very weak. Okay. You have more or less emperors who are ruling the states. They decide virtually on everything. So if we further empower them by handing over a policing system to them, I think the consequences...
All right, Dr. Adamu. So if it is not state police, what other options do we have?
Oh, we do have an option. Olajumoke, we have a community policing policy that has already been approved and that the former president Buhari has already signed into it. And that is what we have at the moment. But we are not implementing it fully. The community policing policy has two major components to it. Number one is the community policing committees that are supposed to be established in each of the wards in this country. And in most of the wards, they've been established. Now, the beauty of the community policing committees is that they will have representatives from each stakeholder within the community. Women groups, market groups, youth groups, farmers, name them, whoever it is, as long as you are recognized within that community, you would have representation in that committee. So that means you'll be coming, and remember that the meetings would be in a place where the police would also be present. So during those meetings, the idea of those committees is that they will be able to identify the things that are disturbing them within that community. And because the police is present, they will take decisions together with the police on how to address those issues. So I would say it's a beautiful place to start. Why we are not implementing it, I honestly don't know. And the Inspector General of Police does not need any approval to make those committees effective. Because like I said, the policy is already in place. There's no approval that is being awaited from anyone. The second aspect of this community policing policy is the police constabularies that were supposed to be recruited. And as far as I know, they have been recruited across the country. But then there was a challenge at the point. Of course, politicians felt that this was employment for their cronies, and so a lot of them secured these constabulary positions for their cronies. But then they realized at a point that there was no budgetary provision for payment. The whole idea of the constabularies was that we're not going to pay them with public funds. The idea is if the community wants, the community can put together some small money, and then they can use it to support the activities of this constabulary. Sadly, that has not happened up to now. So again, the Inspector General of Police does not need anybody's approval to make this policy work. If he wants to, it's just for him to go out. So I think, why don't we start with that? Why don't we, until the National Assembly decides, or the National Economic Council, as it were, which is a bit odd, that is the National Economic Council that is discussing state policing, until whichever arm of government is responsible decides on the direction, why don't we go with what we have in place at the moment, so that we at least secure our communities better?
What exactly would you say is the situation with Plateau State? The December 2023 massacre is still fresh in our memories. And according to the governor, he recently says, since the return to democratic rule in 1999, Plateau has remained under relentless attacks by bandits and terrorists. And on this program, you and your colleagues have established that there is a possibility that there are terrorist enclaves within these communities that perhaps the state government isn't aware of or difficult to locate. And the governor has also said these criminal groups have now seized control of nearly all the state forests, game reserves and grazing areas. My focus is on the establishment of the Forest Ranger Force, which is in line with the president's desire to enhance forest guards, equipped with modern technology and weapons to bolster security measures. How far do you think the federal government should have gone towards actualizing this initiative?
I think it should have been one of the first things that this administration would do. If you look at the Renewed Hope agenda, there are several policy initiatives that are contained in that document, which is practically a mandate now, because, I mean, we've voted in the president, and so his agenda has now become a mandate. So I believe that the Forest Guard initiative should have been implemented. I remember last year, or even in 2023, the president did meet with the governors, and the outcome of that meeting was a directive for the governors to start implementing that policy, as it were, of forest guard. So I don't know what happened, why we're yet to have that. Yet we still have ungoverned spaces across several states.
But how important is it?
It's absolutely important. One of the drivers of insecurity at the moment is the existence of this ungoverned spaces. And the irony, Olajimoke, is that most of these ungoverned spaces belong to the state governors. They
That's
have
correct.
responsibility for them. So apart from a few reserves, forest reserves, that is under the control, as it were, of the federal government, almost every other land belongs to the state government, including forest. So it is the responsibility of the states, as it were. And the earlier they start certain measures, and I must say they need to think, outside the box to come up with ways to put adequate surveillance within that forest. If they are reluctant to recruit these forest rangers, forest guards, for whatever reason, then how about technology? There is enough technology today that would allow you to have surveillance within this forested and mountainous areas. But the earlier we started, the better. If what Daniel Boala said is true, that they do receive up to 300 billion naira in terms of security vote every month, then they should start thinking of technology. Again, there is enough technology that they can use to allow them to have surveillance in those ungoverned spaces. Of course, technology would also require human recruitment. So forest rangers is really the way to go, and it should have been done yesterday, not even today.
You also wonder what exactly, might be delaying all of these initiatives to come into friction. We've heard from the NSA, also from the police, the IGP has spoken and, ordered the immediate and comprehensive deployment of police tactical assets to all of these affected areas. The police IG is talking about this critical intervention with significant reinforcement. It talked about additional units of highly trained tactical personnel. There is a long list of other interventions. Is it about the numbers of deployed personnel or military equipment or strategic operations? What must change?
Accountability, Olajimoke.
On whose part?
Honestly, I wish I could.
On whose part, Dr. Adamu?
On the part of the government, frankly. And by that, I mean accountability on the security sector.
Okay.
Let's use Plateau State as an example. There are two major operations in Plateau State. What is called Operation Safe Haven, that has been in existence for 15 years. If you have a child that is 15 years old and you don't know whether that child is effective or not, then you yourself need to question yourself.
You have a problem.
In other words, exactly. We need to evaluate the performance of that operation. If we're having the kind of killings that we're having in Plateau State, and we have an operation that is 15 years old in that state, then something is wrong. The second operation is Operation Rainbow, that was established by the state, and it has different components, policing and several other state level security operations. We also need to evaluate that. So I believe that it's all about accountability. Olajimoke, even in your space, if you have a staff that has failed, and then you have not queried that staff, or it's a repeated case of failure, and you've not fired that staff, or even redeployed that staff, or retrained that staff, or asked the staff, is it an issue of equipment or what? Then it means you yourself, you are condoning failure. And frankly, that's where I stand at the moment. You are a journalist. Correct me if I'm wrong. have you read anywhere whether one security personnel has been held accountable or even redeployed over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks that we've been having these incidents in Plateau and Benue State? So in simple terms, I am saying it in clear terms that it is a case of accountability. That's what needs to change. And I think the president should help us in that regard. He appointed most of the persons in this portfolio. If it's a case of misappointment in terms of their capacity, then maybe he should rejiggle them to other locations. So in clear terms, give them specific directives. And where they fail to meet those directives, perhaps change them.
Let's talk about Operation Safe Haven, because you mentioned that. Do you think the operation of Operation Safe Haven must change taxes at this point? You know, there's a new GOC, Major General Folorunso Oyinlola, who has pledged to be just and impartial in addressing the security challenges in Plateau State. Is it about the operation or the leadership?
So I believe that the operation is just a small component of what is needed in Plateau State. No military operation can address an identity-based conflict. Sadly, for some reasons, the residents of Plateau State do not want to accept that what they are dealing with is an identity-based conflict. I'm not excluding the possibility that there is a criminal element that is supporting this identity-based conflict. Yes, there is, definitely. There are probably terrorists, name them whatever, that are also involved. But at the root of the crisis in Plateau State is identity-based conflict. And you don't use force to manage identity-based conflict. There are 4 things that we need to do if we're going to address this identity-based conflict. Number 1 is to enhance community policing in the manner that I explained earlier on. We need to have in each of the local governments in Plateau State a strengthened community policing component and a strengthened security architecture that allows rapid response within 7 to 15 minutes. Olajumoke, this is not rocket science. It's very simple. Number 2 is a conflict-sensitive governance that addresses land disputes, political marginalization, and resource competition. Again, it must be a local governance style. It is not the federal government, it's not the military that will do that. It is the state government that must do these 3 things that I've mentioned. You cannot have complaining every time that it's about land grabbing, and yet you do not have an effective policy for managing land issues such as land governance. Start with that. Number 3, a justice system that is fair, fast, and credible. Once you have that in place, it reduces the tendency for communities to arm themselves in order to protect or exact whatever interest that they want. And then the last one is civic education and dialogue platforms that help bridge divides and not widen them. In the case of Plateau State, they have a peace commission. But Olajumoke, find out, is that peace commission being funded adequately? Does it have the wherewithal to carry out this civic education? And at the national level, what is NOA doing? What is the Ministry of Information doing? So until we do all of this, it is then that the Operation Safe Haven can have the capacity to carry out its role. But we are expecting, the expectations we have on Operation Safe Haven is unrealistic, frankly. We have to do all of this, and then, of course, they will go after the criminals and tame them. But right now, we want Operation Safe Haven to do everything when we've not improved on governance.
And Dr. Adamu, earlier I said it's important for us not to continue to polish some of these conversations any longer, because our brothers and sisters are being killed every day. And this, would take me back to the issue of accountability in the security sector. And I know what you mean is that heads must roll. And also I remember the December 2023 Christmas Eve massacre on the Plateau. CDS Christopher Musa excused the Army's lack of intelligence capability on the basis that the attackers selected remote areas difficult for the soldiers to access quickly, even when informed of ongoing attacks. Do you think that to a very large extent, this is a situation where non-state actors are challenging the supremacy of governments and doing it successfully because no one has been held accountable or no deterrents that will forcefully make them stop this act across the country?
Exactly. That's the situation we're having in the country. Non-state actors realize that the only way they can exact whatever interest that they want is to pick up weapons. And they've done that. They've tried it once, they've tried it twice, and now they've institutionalized the challenge of the instruments of force by the state. They're able to do it, and because we don't arrest and punish them, we're seeing a repetition of it over and over and over again. I mean, think about it, Olajumoke. 50 persons or 100 or 70 or whatever number would climb motorbikes, sometimes 2 on 1 motorbikes. Can you imagine the quantity of dust that would be raised by that moving motorbike? Can you imagine the noise of the revving of the engine of those motorbikes? Now they will now come to communities, attack those communities, and in most times touch those communities. So that means fire would be raised. We're not, look, it pains me to envision that situation and then to come to the conclusion that in spite of all of this, they will be able to escape and we won't be able to arrest them. We will not be able to punish them. So clearly they are challenging the supremacy of the use of force by the state, and they're doing so successfully without any consequences until we change that tide, where they realize that if they challenge that supremacy, the consequences would either be death or the consequences would be, a very long time in prison or some very, very difficult and dire consequences. It's only then that I think we would now start seeing some level of peace. But at the moment, I hate to say with all sense of responsibility that as a state, we have not succeeded in maintaining that supremacy of the use of force at the moment. It beats me. And I would say this for anyone who wants to hear. In today's world, in fact, maybe I should recommend to the Minister of Defense or to the IG of Police, he should go to the Minister of Communications and tell him to please ask the team in NIDDA or any of the agencies under Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. They can help him through forensic investigation, identify where those motorbikes came from and where those motorbikes left to. It's not a rocket science.
Thank you for telling us that, Dr. Adamu. And, still talking about accountability, we've seen several reports of northern stakeholders alleging that banditry now business venture for government officials and security agents. Is this statement a fact or a myth? Do you think this should be investigated? And, juxtaposing this with Governor Mothwang saying that when the security personnel arrest some suspects, they end up being released after arrest, courtesy of some powerful persons. They end up being released back into the society. And how it also looks like the Northern elders are too quiet on this matter.
Okay, first off, let me start from the failure of the criminal justice system to arrest and punish offenders. It's not specific to banditry. It cuts across virtually all sectors of our society where offenders are committing offenses and they are not being punished through the criminal justice system. So I know the narrative is focuses on banditry, but it's not just banditry. Name them. Virtually every aspect of society in Nigeria today, you have offenders that are committing offense of various types of offenses.
So, Dr. Adamu, I specifically said that because Governor Mothwang made that statement on TVC News.
Well, I'm a bit concerned about some of the narratives that are being spewed out by our leaders. It sounds to me that our leaders need to be a little bit more open in terms of appreciating that their incidents or security challenges don't have linear explanations.
But are you saying this is not? Are you saying this is not the reality?
So in terms of banditry, it's the reality, but it's not specific to banditry. This is the point I'm saying. I mean, yeah, like you rightly said, and I hope you are going to give me immunity. I don't want anyone to come and, harass me after what I'm going to say, but it's probably common knowledge, so I would say it all the same. Communities collect levies, and there is one video at the moment that has gone viral where a young man is advocating for communities to donate money. And what's that money going to be used for, Olajumoke? Two things. That money is going to be used to buy weapons, and secondly, to buy influence. Whenever any member of that community is arrested, it is that money that will be used to, quote unquote, bribe a public security official to release the member of that community that has been arrested. So sadly, this issue has become institutionalized within our system, where influence and bribery stops or prevents the criminal justice system from punishing offenders. And with the tacit involvement of most members of our communities, sometimes political leaders, sometimes religious leaders, sometimes economic leaders, sometimes name them, anyone. As long as you are a member of that community, you would use your influence in this instance. So point I'm trying to make is, yes, the governor may be correct, but the governor should have an open mind to realize that it is not specific to banditry. It is the reality of our system today that the criminal justice system has failed. And it is the same in Plateau State, like it is in Zamfara State, like it is in Oyo State, or in Delta State, or in Enugu State. So it's cuts across the entire country. It's not specific to Plateau State.
All right, a great way to end this conversation. But above all, the president has made a promise. He has promised to keep the country safe, and we're hopeful that he keeps to those commitments, because this is the responsibility of governments. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Dr. Kabir Adamu, Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I believe there is hope. I believe that with the right steps, just like I've listed them, we can turn this tide to where we see an improvement in public security.
Amen. We're hopeful. Thank you so much.